Do not adjust your listening devices. We are back to our normal listening pleasures. We are talking about shaking up enemy stats. No Iron Sworn this week.
No, not this time. We've been through Iron Sworn. Spent 3 weeks dedicated
whole weeks talking
Iron
about
Sworn. Yeah, we really enjoyed it. Keep your ears open for some special shiz coming soon.
The 2 kobolds special stuff.
Special stuff.
And I don't know why I did the hand gesture there. I'm not sure
I
what
have
that
no
hand
idea.
gesture
It was a little bit creepy, not going to lie.
It was a bit like
some weird
it's the hand signal for people that can't see us. It's the hand signal when you owe someone money and you just rub your fingers
a little
together.
Honestly, I didn't catch all of that. The cut of the video feed, sort of, all I could see was your fingers wiggling, and I was a little bit, what is going on there? Something weird.
That was it.
Yeah, no. Capital S special stuff, going back to Iron Sworn. But for this week, yes, we are taking a look at some more generic TTRPG shiz, which hopefully you can use across the Dragon game, Pathfinder, anything like that, to shake up your enemy stats if you think your players are ploughing through them like knives through butter. Now, don't you just hate it when you've got this encounter and you've laid it out and it's great and your players just steamroll through it? They've got average rolls. It's not even like they're making great rolls, but they steamroll through it and you're looking at this thinking, what the fuck, man?
Yeah, I mean, you get to a point where you're like, that shouldn't have been as easy as it was. Plan B, I suppose.
Plan B.
If you've got one.
Well, yeah, if you have one. And that's not always the case. So everybody knows that bandits are pretty damn easy for anybody over, like, 5th level, right?
Yes.
A bandit is, well, yeah, they're kind of rubbish. Once you're over a certain level, it's just, you basically just, nope, you're dead. There you go. So how do you keep things like bandit encounters while they're traveling on the road interesting?
I'll tell you how. You have 2 bandits.
You have 2 of them.
Yeah. You don't just throw one at your one bandit against a party of 4. You go with 2 bandits. That'll really fuck them up.
That'll really fuck them up. Think about it this way. At what point does the number of bandits just become implausible? Because
I'm going to say 6.
When you think about it, obviously, if you've got easy creatures, the first instinct is to just add more. But at what point does that become stupid? Now, I have run wave combat with large numbers of enemies, and it is an absolute mission to get all the NPCs, like all the baddies, moving and doing something remotely useful. Now, luckily, the wave combat had a lot of allies that these guys could take control of as well and direct and say, okay, well, I want those guys over there doing that and those guys. So it was something for them to do. But do you really want to just make things harder by throwing lots and lots and lots of things at your players? You know, that becomes boring. That's not fun. It's not about
just work this. Well, I'll tell you this, because I'm just looking on the D&D and Beyond combat encounter, and let me just work out, hang on, 20 bandits make it, roughly about 20 bandits make it a hard difficulty against a party of level 5. So you have to throw 20
4 level 5s.
4 level 5s, 20 bandits.
20 bandits. So that's 5 bandits per player character.
And to make it even more spicy, to make it deadly, you throw in a bandit captain, and that kind of tips the scales to deadly. So 21 enemies in total to take down your party of level 5 characters.
So adapt that now to a party of level 8, let's say, and see what the encounter builder on there says now.
Party level 8. Okay, 4 level 8 characters, yeah?
Yep.
Let's just try this. Bear with us, listeners. This is interesting.
We need some
This is really chopping it down, actually.
Wow.
That is now considered a medium difficulty with a bandit captain and 20 bandits.
So you've gone up 3 levels and you have halved the difficulty. That's ridiculous. So, how can you make it more interesting without just constantly adding more? Because 20 and a bandit captain is already kind of pushing it in, what is manageable. It's now, as I said, I have done it. I have done large combats, but what I tend to do is run them in groups. So, okay, this group's doing that, and that group's doing this, and they're all doing that, and then I roll multiples of dice all at once and just go, okay, yep, okay, no, that's fine. And it's quick. I've gotten into a habit. But if you're new to it, there are other ways that you can spice up your combat without in the numbers every time, without getting to 42 bandits or whatever.
Well, yeah, I mean, something I've seen which is quite interesting, which I've used, is it's where you're just like minion characters essentially have they don't have hit points, they just have one hit. You hit them once, that's one level exhaustion. Hit them a second time, they're dead. So they're just like 2 hits and they're done. For that sort of thing, especially if they're like goblins or something very sort of like mediocre, and that's how it works. It's very sort of straightforward. The next time they attack, they're rolling with disadvantage because you're supposed to be a hero. They're just some scrub off the street. That's how I've seen it work.
So what I actually tend to do is I go in a stat block, and you say the average hit points is always set at the average. If you want to make a bandit encounter more interesting without upping the number, you just tweak the stat block a little bit. Now, I have talked about this before. I can't remember which episode it was in. I think it may have been...
Was it way back in series 1? Or
No, it was in series... I don't think so. It might have been something to do with plot armor.
Could have been, yes. I think that might have been the one.
It could have been something to do with plot armor, but I have spoken about this before. The stat blocks that you've got, they're sort of averaged out. They're kind of like mid-tier. So what can you do? You can edit the stat block. So if you've got a bandit, let's say, you want to keep it as the bandit. You don't want to move on to something like, say, a soldier, which is actually a little bit hardier. They don't have a soldier doesn't have a massive number of hit points, but they have things like they have extra melee attacks and they use a longsword and they have formation tactics. If that doesn't really fit, you just want to keep your bog standard bandit, just up the stats. That is literally all I do. So if I go onto the bandit stat block in the D&D rules, they have an armor class of 12. They're wearing leather armor. They have 11 hit points, which is 2d8 plus 2 and a sort of in the middle ground. Their challenge rating is 1/8 compared to the challenge rating of 1/2 of a soldier. Now, bear in mind, a soldier does have an armor class of 18, but it only has 16 hits, so there's not much difference in the hit points there. It literally has one extra hit dice. So one option is that you can just use the hit points of the soldier stat block. You can also up their arm. You can also armor class. So take them up from leather armor to studded leather or a breastplate. They're bandits. They've probably plundered armed mercenaries before as they've been traveling through.
They're going to have like piecemeal armor, like a bit of studded leather, maybe a pauldron for some plate armor. Be creative with it, I suppose. Yeah, you can sort of mix and match, can't you?
You can also look at their hit points and actually just max out their hit points if you wanted. So you could do they've got 2d8 plus 2 with a con of plus 1. So just literally give them 2 times 8 plus 2. So 18 hit points. You've maxed out the hit points as though you've just rolled max on 2d8. It's still well within the confines of the bandit. You can also upgrade their equipment slightly. So their light crossbow can become a heavy crossbow. The scimitar can become a longsword. It just ups the damage dice a little bit. You can give them magic tools. So you can give the bandit captain a random wand that does fun shit. Because they've plundered, they're bandits. They've
I was going
probably
to say, yeah,
stolen stuff. They're not all going to have the exact same leather armor, scimitar, and light crossbow. They steal things. They take treasure. They murder people for their shit. There is no way that you would leave behind a perfectly good shield or a perfectly good breastplate just because your bandit stat block says, oh, but I'm only wearing leather armor. Make them more interesting. If you've got 5 bandits, have them all wearing different things. If you can manage that. It's like,
yeah, you can just give like one a spear. You could give one like a long sword. You say one could have like daggers and be like throwing daggers and stuff like that. You could mix it up. I mean, would you give like the leader, say like, I don't know, this is just exotic, but like a +1 of a weapon or something like that, just to mix it up a bit?
So the bandit captain has multi-attack anyway, but what I would normally do, the scimitar does 1d6. I would go up to a longsword, which does a d8, or I would make them even more fun and give them a great sword.
Okay.
Because it looks heckin' cool, okay? I'm not being funny, it looks cool. Swinging you come across this bandit wanging around this big feck off sword. You're not gonna, you're gonna be a little bit, oh dear, what have I done here? Add that to its multi-attack. Oh, that's gonna be very interesting. Or switch it out for a great axe. You just don't be afraid to switch out their weapon choices. All you're really doing is changing the dice. You're just changing the damage dice.
Instead of rolling a d6, you're rolling a d8 now, or a d12 if you're going a bit wild.
Or 2d6 if you're using, what is it, a great axe, or one of the hammers, I think, is 2d6 instead of a d12. And
is that a maul maybe? I don't know.
I think it might be a maul. I can't remember. I'd have to double check. It's been a while since I've used one personally. So not that I use one in everyday life, just go around wanging some fucking great thing.
Yeah. I got out of the maul game years ago.
Yeah. Got a bit much, the shoulder.
Got a bit much, yeah.
The shoulder gave in.
They wouldn't let me in Sainsbury's anymore with it.
Kept smashing the shelves.
Yeah, it was just really uncomfortable, really awkward.
Yeah. So if you want to keep sort of like the basic bandit feel and just up their hit points or change the weapons out a little bit, I have also been known to use different stat blocks for my bandits. So instead of doing, say, my bandit, I would use soldier, but then
just tweak it a bit, would you?
Tweak it. So yeah, they aren't wearing chainmail and a shield necessarily. They might be wearing a chain shirt or whatever, and then they get the multi-attack and that, but they're still just bandits. So use a different stat block. Frame them as bandits, but use a different stat block. I've upped a group of soldiers. So the soldier is a bit wang. I'm not being funny. When you look at it, it's just not that good. Now using the Ravnica soldier as an example here. And they are kind of pants. They're literally a 1/2 challenge rating.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, 16 hit points, 18 AC. So it's not exactly very threatening, is it?
No, certainly not to someone between levels 5 to 8. They're not that hard. But if you were to go with, say, a knight is a challenge of 3. They still get the multi-attack. They've still got the armor class of 18, but they have a much greater number of hit points. They've also got a couple of features. Now, what you could do, if you wanted to keep the soldier feel, but make them tougher, is take the knight stat block, switch out the great sword to a long sword, which puts it back in line with the soldier, and just take out the reactions and the special bits, so like brave and leadership. Literally then, they've got the same armor class, they've got more hit points, they've got the same weapon. They're just a bit harder.
Yeah.
Just take another stat block, take out the bits you don't want.
So all you've got there is a soldier with 2 attacks with his long sword, and he can use his heavy crossbow or a crossbow at range, depending on what you want to do.
Yeah. Now, a soldier doesn't actually have a crossbow, which is really stupid because most soldiers would have been trained with a crossbow.
Well, yeah,
Because
they would have been like,
they're easy.
yeah,
You can train someone
yeah.
to use a crossbow in 30 minutes. It's really easy.
Crank, 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 fire. It's a little bit
Yeah.
more skillful if you need a longbow, but crossbow is pretty much more mechanical, isn't it? It's like, off you go.
There is a major difference in that it requires a lot of training to use a longbow effectively.
Yeah.
As a crossbow, you can teach someone to use it in 30 minutes. That doesn't mean it's more effective or better or anything like that. A lot of tests actually show that it wasn't, but it was just easier to get a shitload of people trained up in it in a short space of time.
Yeah. I mean,
So,
would you tweak the knight's hit points as well, or would you leave it as it was? Because it's on like roughly around 52 hit points. Would you like go, oh, maybe scale that down a little bit, like in the 40s?
Potentially. You can do whatever you like with hit points. That's the beauty of being the DM. You can tweak things however you like. So you could look at the hit points and go, that's a bit too much. Let's take that down to 40.
I mean, if you wanted to, you could go, well, okay, let's make it 25 to 30 to give it a bit of a, little bit of difference. Sort of make it so you're not overwhelming them if you had like 4 guards. Because 4 guards at 52 hit points, let's say, with an armor class of 18 against your party, might be a bit overwhelming.
It might be. Instead, though, let's take a quick look at the numbers here because my brain isn't working. If you've got 8d8 plus 16, so 16 plus 8, so that's the lowest you could possibly roll with that. So 16 plus 8 is 24. So you could give them 24 hit points, which is more than the soldier. Not as hardy. Not as hardy.
Take the armor class down to maybe a 16.
Well, that's the thing. A soldier actually has an 18.
Oh, okay.
The soldier's thing is actually an 18.
18
they wear chainmail, which is a 16, plus a shield, which is a 2. So there's that. The only thing is the knight wears plate, which is an automatic 18.
Right.
So it just in that way you can flavour it so that okay, the armor class is still 18, but they're wearing chainmail and they've got a shield, which is why they're using a long sword, not the great sword, because you can't wield a great sword one-handed. Or Precisely. You could, but it would be kind of ineffective. You'd have to be super strong to be doing that shit. You up their hit points to 24, which is D8 if you rolled 1s on all of them, plus the 16. So you've upped their hit points. And that pretty much makes them a bit more difficult. Makes it a little bit more
beefy, doesn't it? Makes them a bit tougher.
A little bit more beefy. Yeah, a bit tougher.
So if you had... Go on.
It doesn't do too much to them to really, screw them over. You're basically taking 2 stat blocks and just sort of smushing them together a little bit.
Yeah, you're picking the best from both and tweaking what you don't like and being like, I'll just change that a little bit. So you have like a soldier because in my mind, a soldier really would be quite tough and resilient and, they'd pack a bit of a punch, but they're not going to be like, we're not going to dogpile you and overwhelm you. You'd probably beat them in the end, but it's not going to be like a walk in the park. Yeah.
Another way to sort of shake up your enemies and, make them a little bit more umphy is to give them healing items. So give them potions of healing or give them access to spell scrolls that allow them to heal. Or
they don't even have to be,
Even better, give them a cleric.
Okay, yes, so you could have like your group of guards, there's like 4 guards and a cleric. And he's buffing them as they fight,
Yep. That's
quite threatening, because you're like,
That's actually how I nearly wore out one of my groups in their first fight of an evening. Now, bear in mind, this is a 5-arc fight, so there's 5 stages to it. Stage 1, they literally had to just go and clear this street of any baddies that they met. I put 1 cleric in amongst 2 knights and 2 soldiers, so there's 5 of them all together. The two soldiers were dead pretty much instantly. They literally blew their faces off with a bomb, which was, pretty good. That kind of sorted that out. But then they had this cleric and these 2 knights who had been boosted a little bit to sort of match the level that they were at. And it was basically a war priest with them.
Okay.
And they struggled. They really struggled against this war priest. And there was a lot of one of the players was really focusing on trying to do like control effects on this cleric, but a lot of them were wisdom saves, and obviously the problem is clerics have a very high wisdom.
They sure do. They sure do.
So he was again and again and again pushing this cleric to make wisdom saves, and he was making the saves pretty easily. It tapped out at least half of their slots and things.
Now, this is a problem that I find with most D&D specifically, is that to me would be time to signal the tactical retreat. I'm tapped. We're making progress. It's time to live to fight another day. And I think some parties would be like, we've got to fight this to the death. And that's how TPKs happen, unfortunately. But I think for me as a player in that situation, seeing that war priest doing that stuff, not getting anywhere with what I'm trying to do because he's got high wisdom, he or she's got high wisdom, and my party's like wounded, the spell slots are being used up. We got to go. We got to try and a tactical retreat, get out of here and live to fight another day. Because I think that's better for the story overall. Because if you just go through and we just smash everything, then it's like, haha. But if you're like, God, there's some threat just from a simple guard party, we're in trouble. We're in big trouble.
What was massively silly was that in the encounter builder, like the calculator, for those guys, this should have been a mid to hard fight.
Okay.
But
is that because like sometimes dice go against you, rolls were going against them?
Sometimes dice go against you. Sometimes players hyperfixate on specific aspects of it, like trying to get the cleric to, trying to force a failed wisdom save from a cleric.
Yeah.
You're not gonna, if you make bad choices like that, you're gonna end up with, it's going to be a much harder encounter. Sometimes the dice just go against you. I did offer them some assistance. I said, look, do you guys need some help here? Like a little bit.
Yeah. Do you want to kind of, yeah.
Do you need an assist? So in the end, I removed one of the guys from the table using a mechanic that was already available. They can signal for help. Signal for help. You've got people around that can come and do shit, and the random roll provided them with probably one of the best people on the field to come and help them, so they got lucky there, and basically took one of the guard knight people out of the fight, just leaving them with the war priest and the other guy. But there is no reason why this war priest should have given them so much trouble, and it was just some bad decisions and some bad rolls that led to it.
Went against
it shook them up, and it really shook up one of the players in particular who said that shouldn't have happened. Why was that so hard? We should be so, like, racing through this. They were only guards. Dude, I've told you many times, I subvert these things. I'm not going to put you up against things that you're just going to plow through. And plow through them, they normally do. Plow through them, they normally do. I want to make it a challenge. You are literally engaging in something that is meant to be hard. It's meant to be tricky. It's not deadly because I've balanced it so that it's not. And it was very frustrating. And it's especially frustrating for me when I hear people metagaming out loud as well. They're like, oh, well, this is a bandit, so they've got an AC of this. So if we hit them twice, they'll be down by that. And then we can. That really pisses me off. And it inspires me to up their hit points even further because I hate it when they do that. I hate it when people audibly metagame and start, well, they'll have this, 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 and this. So if we use this, 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 and that, then we'll easily kill them. No, I'm going to subvert this because, he's got a health potion. Screw you. It really pisses me off. I don't like it.
Well, I mean, to be honest, you could be like, well, that's. I mean, I don't mind if you're and the party like tactically talking out loud above the table like what we want to do and like how we want to maneuver and things. But when you start bringing that into it, you're like, you think you know what this stat block is, so good luck.
But good fucking luck.
If you have someone who's like a bit more of a main tier, say, enemy, would you be like sprinkle in some legendary resistances there, or maybe one or two legendary actions, or is that too much?
On
Is
the
there a named
situation.
character? They're Captain Stern or whatever, and he's this guy, and you're like, well, if you come up against him, he's a good swordsman, he's this, he's that, so he's going to be quite canny and quite sort of tactical in his maneuvers and things.
So I have used a couple of named person stat blocks for the purposes of the game, my game at least. So in one of them, they are looking at capturing these lieutenants. All of the lieutenants are based off of the stat block for a dude called Captain Othelstan from Tyranny of Dragons.
Oh, okay.
So he's tougher than the rest of them because he's meant to be. He's meant to be more difficult than the rest of them. So obviously he's going to have a higher stat block. They usually encounter him on his own, so it's not like
you're not going to get smashed. You're not going to get overwhelmed. Yeah, because if you turn up, yeah, I know what you mean. Because if you turn up with this guy and 6 guards, you're going to be like, oh, we're going to get absolutely beat to shit.
Yeah, so this guy's challenge rating is 5. So in theory, 4 level 5 characters should find this relatively easy. Now, my guys were level 8, but very few of them actually had any outright melee, So it was problematic when this guy got in close, and getting close this guy did, because he's a melee character, he that's what he does. He gets in and he smashes things with his flail. But he also has 93 hit points. So they usually encountered the lieutenants on their own. The lieutenants were often holed up in offices and stuff. They didn't have names, but they were tougher. I also did give them some interesting little trinkets. So one of them actually had a Hellish Rebuke shield. So
okay,
basically, if you failed in an attack against him, he would use his reaction to use the shield to cast Hellish Rebuke, because essentially what you would be doing is hitting his shield, and then it would rebuke you, basically.
Right. Makes sense.
As a reaction. So he had a Hellish Rebuke shield. One of the others had Magical Flail that could catch fire for 1 minute, but they didn't find it, unfortunately. And so nobody has that, which is sad. That's still trapped in the underground prison at times.
I'll never see it again.
Never see it again. So I will usually, if we're looking at sort of mini bosses or demi bosses or whatever, then I might make them tough as an individual. So like Othelstan, take him and
just tweak him a bit here or there.
Tiny bit, give him some magical stuff. Legendary actions, sure, that depends on the situation. I have put them up against a monster that I did edit to give lair actions.
Okay.
So you know the flesh meld?
Yes.
So I had a horrible thought, which was, what if flesh meld but worse?
I mean, is there anything worse?
Yes, a flesh meld with lair actions.
Ooh.
Because a flesh meld does not have lair actions. So basically what I did was I took the idea of the flesh meld and I basically stepped it up. So not only did it heal by biting people or consuming corpses, it had a lair. It could control the lair in many different ways and use a lair action. And when you're inside the lair, it's obviously worse. So yes, in that instance, I did give it a lair action. I would only go so far as to give legendary actions if the characters are, say, maybe level 12 or higher. But even then, I'd be a little bit hesitant, because legendary actions and things like that are for things that are super strong, super powerful. If you're putting your only halfway leveled group against something that is the equivalent of a level 19 or 20, then that's a bit mean.
A bit much.
It's a bit much, yeah. But yeah, you can take creatures and give them lairs. So my flesh amalgam, which you can actually now see over on my World Anvil, if you go into World
check
Anvil.
It out. Go get yourself a flesh amalgam.
Smash my own headphone off of my headset. That was great. So yeah, if you go if you can find my links to my World Anvil, I'm sure they're there somewhere. I have put them somewhere. I can't remember exactly where they are, but they're there somewhere. If you go take a look at my link for the Aberrant Flesh Amalgam, that is basically what happens when you take a flesh meld and make it nasty.
There you go.
So it has layers, therefore it has a layer action. It's a bit bigger and stronger than a regular flesh amalgam. They're intelligent. They're very intelligent. That's the thing as well. Change the intelligence of what you're throwing against your players.
Give it a couple more points, intelligence or something, just to mix it up with the saves. It's always a good...
See, it's very common to play bandits as being a bit dumb.
Yeah, I mean, I've used bandits as more... A couple of bandits I used a game a while ago I ran, they were more comical. They were like the worst bandits in the land, just terrible at their job. And in the end, they both died. Like, one got an arrow to the face, and his mate, who was like, that was his best friend in all the world. I was the torn apart with grief, charged in. This was against a bandit, like a guard group, and the party and these two guys had decided to try and interfere. And he got killed, and the other guy ran in and did some damage, but then eventually just got bodied by the guard party as the player party like looked on and were like, these two poor guys were just tragic.
It is very tragic.
Like, yeah, but they were losers. They were like the worst bandits you could imagine, and yeah, they served a purpose as at least to help in that situation.
Yeah, so it's very common for people to look at this stat block. So if you look at the stat block of a bandit, it's very generic. They have 10s in Wiz charisma. They have an 11 in strength and 12 in dex and con, which pretty average.
Straightforward. Yeah.
Pretty average. But you get a lot of the time, you get people playing bandits as stupid or as bolshy and, you know, fighting to the death for whatever is. They don't have to be like that. You can make them more intelligent, make them more tactical, have them
make them a bit more sneaky, like they're going to try and outflank you and things like that.
Have bunches of them hiding, so you show 3 bandits, but there's actually 2 that are sneaking up behind you, and it takes a contested roll for you to notice them, or you need to use your passive perception to notice them. So make them more tactical, give them higher intelligence, up the stats, up the bandit stats. It's fine to do that. Just take numbers and change them. It's fine. Nobody cares. Well, unless you're a metagamer.
Yeah, I mean, there's a website called 5e Tools that I've used in the past, and on there, which is quite interesting, you can get a stat block, and you can raise the CR level. So I've just taken a bandit to level 3. He's got 52 hit points. Okay, fair enough. He's got 12 AC. But he still gets a +4 to attack. And his scimitar can do 11d6 plus 2 damage. So a bit more of a threat. You could take that if you wanted to. Change the AC a little bit. Maybe change what he does weapon-wise. And you've still got something effective. And that's, 5e Tools. I've used that in the past. And you can sort of scale up the CR on your thing to see how it looks and how it fares, if it looks too powerful or whatever. So that's another little handy tool. 5e Tools. Yeah, I've used it loads of times. I've got loads of stuff on there for stat blocks for all sorts of stuff. So you can mix and match, like you say. You can use that as a helpful tool to kind of mix and match.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be. The answer to making things still feel challenging isn't always just increase the number of bad guys. It can be as easy as just saying, well, my bandit now has a breastplate.
Yeah, or they have a different weapon that just, like you say before, you can roll differently and it hits differently.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Give them just fun toys to play with. Give them ballista. Give them a fucking ballista. That's always fun.
I mean, you could just these bandits turn up on like a wagon with this ballista on it, and it's like,
fucking ballista.
Clunk, take that party.
Hey, I would get the fuck out and give me all your money before I shoot your fucking horse in the head.
I always, sometimes I get in the space of like, if it visually, like thinking about it, if it were like a film or something, and for the party to come upon, like, and the bandits just go, aha, and pull back this ballista. So they're like, what, you want some?
What the
I mean,
fuck?
to be honest, that is one of those situations where, like, shit, because you've got like four bandits and this ballista now. They're like, right, now you need to figure out what the hell we're doing, because beforehand you're like, oh, we could take these fools. Next minute, like, not, what about now? I've
Well,
got
this
my
is what I
ballista.
mean. Subvert the expectations. Give them fun toys and tools. Because if your players can access healing potions and spell scrolls and wands
Why
and
can't they do something fun?
magic,
Yeah.
why can't they have it? If bandits spend their life pillaging and stealing, they will target high value items like that. They will target things like that. They will get smart, they will get organized, they will rally behind a captain figure, and they will become more efficient. The longer a bandit group operates, the more notorious and the better they become at doing stuff. So we're obviously using the bandit as an example for shaking up the stats, but this is the same for any of your NPCs. So that little thief that he's like a 1/2 challenge rating. Up his stats. Give him some extra bits and pieces. Give him some fun toys to play with. Give him explosives and smoke bombs and poison and things like that. Change it up. Keep your players guessing, because if you just look at more bandits, they have leather.
It gets a bit, people can
They're
be
dead.
like, I kind of know what we're going to expect here, so
Yeah.
let's not worry, guys.
So shake it up. Do what I did. Give them healing potions. Give them access to magic items. Give them raging egos that give them magical abilities or something. I don't know.
Well, yeah, I mean,
I was just thinking of one guy. He was basically a reskinned barbarian. Like, he was a bandit. It was fucking hilarious. Just a reskinned.
But it's the same thing
barbarian.
with like you say, you just try and make it a little bit more exciting without being too much for your party, because I suppose at the end of the day, that's not the big bad. You don't.
No.
Well, this whole campaign now centers on the party versus this bandit group because
I
they
don't
got
know.
the
Maybe
drop on
they
them.
are your big bad.
Maybe
if the bandit group all along, all the world's problems will be solved if you just get rid of this bandit group.
I mean, it would be fun, because then it's like you have this rivalry of the player party and the bandit group that's always got the drop on them. That somehow always manages to, bother them or corner them or wound them or whatever.
And I mentioned earlier, give them a cleric. If a cleric doesn't work, give them a sorcerer or a warlock.
That's a good
or
idea.
give them or give them a wizard. This wizard maybe got thrown out of his school and he's joined the bandits and is now using his magic to help them. Don't just make bandits all bandits. Give them magic users.
Yeah.
Because
you're not the only ones for just the cleric, guys. You're not the only ones.
No, you're not. You could also reskin druids into bandits.
Yes. I tell you what, a good version of that was, if you've watched, again, we like to reference Critical Role here on Two Kobolds.
We do.
Season 2, in the early days, I think it was a group called the Iron Shepherds they come up against. They had quite a gnarly druid in that group. I think they had... I think there was like an elven archer. I can't quite remember specifics. I haven't seen it in a long time. I have to go watch it. But one of them I'm pretty sure was a druid, and they were doing some like entangle and all this sort of shit. So yeah, it can really make a difference. It really can.
So spice up your bandit encounters with magic users, because it's different, and it forces your party to think about things in a different way. Whether that's a cleric as somebody who is buffing or healing the bandits as you're going along and making you drain your resources, or if it's a wizard or sorcerer or a warlock with crowd control who is forcing you to sort of split up a bit, use the space better. Don't just think, oh, well, this isn't a bandit, so I can't use it. You can use whatever the hell you like in terms of stat blocks.
It doesn't have to be the stat. Yeah, you can call it a bandit. It could be anything.
You could call it a bandit, but it's actually a dragon. No, that's a bit much.
Well, no,
There's a
unless
bandit,
no,
bandit
that's
dragon.
fair. Unless you had dragonborn bandits, and then that
Yeah.
gives a whole completely different
It's really
kind of,
there's a whole different thing
because
going on there.
that'd be scary. I'd be like, here's my money.
Here's my money,
I don't want
take
to
it.
fight you
I
because
don't-
you've got too much shit you could do, so I'm out of here. I retire from the adventuring game.
I'm not doing this anymore. But it's like, there's literally things like an assassin. There's a stat block for an assassin, challenge 8. You can make your bandits just a fucking bunch of assassins if you wanted.
It doesn't say you
There
can't.
is nothing you can, because these stat blocks were originally designed for specific situations. But once you take them outside of that specific situation, essentially you can reskin anything as anything you like. You can reskin a bandit as a member of the City Watch.
Yeah.
You can reskin an assassin as a noble. The nobles have a stat block. There is a noble stat block.
Is it quite weak, or is it quite? It's not bad, I suppose.
Yeah, it's weak. No, it's weak.
Yeah, that's
It's a challenge
absolute.
1/8. It's a challenge rating 1/8, man. It's weak. But you could reskin an assassin as a noble, because nobody's going to fucking know. You just describe the assassin as wearing a fancy pants breastplate and pretty robes, and he's a fucking noble. He can be whatever you like.
Yeah.
It even says in the noble's description that the noble stats can be used to represent courtiers who aren't of noble birth. So it's not restrictive. What the stat block that you have says doesn't have to be only what you use it for. You can use a knight for elite soldiers in a mercenary band if you wanted.
Yeah.
It's just mash things up. Change the numbers. Give them fun stuff. Do what I did with the flesh meld and say, what if worse? And give it horrible things.
Yeah.
Mix it up, play with it. Don't be afraid to use different stat blocks and different numbers and different weapons. Think to yourself, oh, I wonder if I can make this bandit a little bit more like Xena Warrior Princess by giving her
Okay.
a short sword and a chakram.
Yep. And the one that comes back.
Yeah, the spinny disc thing. That's fun. Can I do that? Or what if I want this person to mimic someone from Castlevania? I forget who it is, but wields a whip.
Alucard?
Kind of
Trevor Belmont.
kinky. Kind of kinky.
Trevor Belmont. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm gonna make this mercenary more like them. Give them a whip. Dress it up. Ultimately, stat blocks are literally just plain dress up with your ideas.
Yeah, it's all depending on what you want to use them for and how effective you want to use them, is how I look at it. Is like, what's the goal of what I want to do with these bandits, or, how threatening are they going to be? That sort of thing, really.
It's just, you can do what you like. And I do find that I have been questioned once, like, well, why was your bandit so different from a regular bandit? So, because a regular bandit is too easy,
Yeah.
But why not? Why did you not just add more? Because that's hard. That's my brain.
Yeah, because and then there's too many things you have to control, too many initiative orders, and then you've gone into a 6-hour fight, and you're like, geez, this is never ending.
There's just so many of them. Yeah. It's just a lot of problems that I see with this is that new DMs are very scared of making a mistake, I suppose. But
yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think that's what it is.
So they don't tend to experiment, and they'll take things at their word. This is a bandit stat block. This is a bandit captain stat block. This is a soldier stat block. And it was definitely something that I had to explain to a couple of people that I met. You just don't use different stat block. But I can't, because that's not a bandit. Yeah, but they're both humanoids, right? It's not like you're swapping a humanoid for a dragon. You're just swapping two different types of humanoids to make it a bit harder. You want it harder, right? Yeah, but I want bandits. Okay, so just use their numbers. It's
have your bandit and just do what you figure it out.
What's the difference between these two guys other than the fact that one's called a soldier and one's called a bandit? the numbers are different. You could swap them over. You could swap the names over and
Yeah.
nobody would know. Nobody would care.
Exactly. Because it's
And it,
all part of the whole game. It's like, you don't have to tell them,
yeah,
like, guys, these are actually knights, just to make you aware.
just
Like,
to
who
make you
cares?
aware,
Don't say
these are
anything.
knights. Yeah, no, don't
Yeah.
say.
Like, why?
That's why I hate metagaming, because people say,
Mm.
okay, we can do this because these are basically just knights. No, just stop, because no, just no. Please don't do that.
Well, yeah.
And that's partly why as well I try to give my bandits and things something a little bit different, so that they do subvert the expectations, so that they do have a trick up their sleeve, so that they don't fall into this trap of / bandit dead / bandit dead / bandit dead. Oh, this is too easy, let's just keep. I give a lot of them have slightly different, some small differences between them every time, so that it keeps them on their toes. Will this group have access to a whole bunch of healing potions? This group have access to a warlock. This group have access to a necromancer. This group have a pack of hunting wolves that they're about to set on your ass.
Yeah.
Ha ha.
Good luck.
Good luck. Here, have a warhound chasing you down.
Yeah. Off you go. Yeah.
Just give them toys, give them fun stuff. It's okay to subvert expectations. It's okay to tweak things and change them and make them different. In fact, encourage it. I actively encourage my DMs to do weird shit, because it gets boring. Oh, it's a bandit. Yay.
Yeah.
Boring.
Precisely. So, on that note, I think that'd be a good opportunity to end the podcast. Yeah, we hope we've given you some inspiration to go out there and use whatever stat blocks you need, whether it be bandits, knights, soldiers, whatever, to try and spice up your NPC bad guys to take on your party, and maybe even give them a bloody nose now and again and see how they
Yes,
react to
indeed.
that.
Yes, indeed. Spice things up. That knight doesn't have to be skinned as a knight, They can be a bandit too. So don't be afraid to go out and try new things. And speaking of new things, go and join us over on our new YouTube channel, where we are slowly uploading some of our more interesting episodes from across seasons 1 and 2. Go check out Two Kobolds on YouTube, and also come and follow us on Blue Sky, where we're floating about. We're doing blue sky things with the butterflies now. We're with the blue butterflies now. It's great. Just come and see us over there. I forgot what our thing is. It's 2keyatpodcast.bsky.social. Woo, go find us.
That's the one. It's very entertaining. I'm kind of like Blue Sky. There's some good people over there. Good TTRPG people over there. So come check it out. Come say hi if you're over in Blue Sky.
Yes, indeed. Otherwise, you can still find us on all the other socials. So that includes Mastodon, that includes the Zitter, that includes Tumblr. We also still have our coffee up and running, in the hopes of someday being able to afford a domain name for our website. You can find all of these just by Googling Two Kobolds in a Trenchcoat podcast, or just typing in 2KIAT podcast. Please include the podcast, otherwise you get cars. Which is nice if you can drive and if you can afford a nice new car.
And if you like Kias,
if you're like me, you can't.
And if you like Kias, then we're not the podcast for you.
No.
If you want a Kia exclusive podcast, I'm sure they're out there.
I'm sure they're out there. I do like Kia, but unfortunately I can't afford one, so I'm not having one.
But come check us out. We'll have some more interesting, maybe some more Ironsworn stuff coming soon. We'll see. Looking out at your podcast feeds and see what's out there. But we'll be back very soon. Very soon. See you later.
When Shiv learns to read talk.
Tongue was too big for my mouth. Goodbye.
Dear.